Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Thinking Out Loud, and it's going to be a little bit different today, so we're going to hop right in here. We've been going through What is the Bible series. There's about 26 of those. The link is in the description section if you want to check that out. But today we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're still going to continue with our What is the Bible series. That's probably going to be like a 50-part series or like a 40-part series. But today we're switching gears a little bit. We are right in the middle of two mini-series in that What is the Bible series. We're in between spiritual beings and human beings as the Bible's main character. But I started a new course online 3 weeks ago. So I've been trying to get my bearings straight on how I'm going to create content for the website, and then also do all my work for that, and then all my other duties of writing a book here in my land and running a congregation in my host land. And so there's just a lot of plates I'm spinning right now, but I wanted to kind of share this experience with Critical Thinking Out Loud community of me doing this course. Now there's going to be more information. I'll give links to that later as I set up this series. This is the first post in there, but there's this discussion topics, which I've had to reply to, 3 of those so far. And I'm going to turn those into posts and do some live streams for you guys, so you guys can get a little flavor of what we're talking about. And it's, of course, theology and doctrine, but it's also in kind of a question-answer format. And so let's hop right in here and check it out. So today's topic is, are tattoos biblical? Now, in the description section, you can hop over there, and I'm going to put it in the comments real quick too. There's a link in the comments, and you can hop onto the webpage and read along with me or reference it later. But this is just food for thought, and I wrote this kind of up on the fly as I was responding to some questions through my course. And are tattoos biblical? Now, just some food for thought alongside this passage in Revelation. On his robe and on his thigh, he has his name written, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. That's Revelation 19:16, guys. That's talking about the return Christ. On his return, he has his name written on his thigh. Isaiah also records Yahweh in anthropomorphic form as having something engraved on his hands as well. Now, this is a quote from Isaiah 49. Can a woman forget her nursing child, that she have no compassion on her son of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. Behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continual before me. Your builders make haste, your destroyers and those who laid you waste go out from you. Now here's just some reflections of this, guys. It's going to be a not so long of a video here today, but it seems as if these scriptures are communicating to the reader that the visible Yahweh, if you want to know more about that, click on the hyperlink, has engravings or tattoos on his body. And I think a helpful thought to this discussion is, for what purpose would the Lord have these tattoos? Now, I want to just point something out in that Isaiah 49:16 verse right there. Before it says, behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands, it says, yet I will not forget you. I think that's going to be important coming up. Now, God's image, I don't know why, but Dr. Michael Heiser's view on the image of God kept popping into my mind when contemplating this topic. For those who may not be familiar, even though we've talked about it a lot here on this channel, I've heard him describe his view as not being so much an attribute inherited, which are some really good points to that. If it's tied to brain function, does a brain dead person not have the image of God anymore? If it's tied to free will, so making decisions, is a baby unborn yet who can't do that, or even up to a certain age? Or if you have Alzheimer's and you aren't able to critical think like that, would that erase the image of God? Those are good things to think about, but he doesn't ascribe it to this, nor do I, but he ascribes it to who spiritual beings. We just did that with the spiritual being course that we just went over, series that we went over, so go check that out, and physical beings, who these are as a whole, and that's their representatives. He uses the illustration of a statue in that we as God's imagers are his statues or image on the earth. I think that's good theology there, where his reflection is representatives on the earth. So we read in the Old Testament, you shall not make yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven or that is in the earth or beneath or that is in the water under the earth. That's Exodus 20:4. According to this verse, it is strictly forbidden for people to make an idol / representation of the Lord because Yahweh had already placed his image on the earth. Furthermore, other laws require the death of the one who has murdered someone else precisely because the murderer has killed God in effigy. So I'm God. I'm God's representative here on earth. I reflect God, and so do you. So does anybody out there. And so we're going to talk about abortion in a couple weeks, actually, because I already went on that. But an unborn baby at a heartbeat, anything. These are God's little statues on the earth. He made them in His image for us to represent Him. Of course, with our free will, we wreak havoc, and we don't always do that rightly. But this is what the Bible communicates to us. Now, according to this verse, it is strictly forbidden for people to make an idol or representation of the Lord because Yahweh has already placed his image on the earth. That's what I just said. Furthermore, other laws require the death of one who has murdered someone else precisely because the murderer has killed God in effigy. So that's where that comes from. I'm just shooting from the hip here. But could there be something like this going on with the tattoo issue, both in regards to humans and the Lord? Now, let me explain this a little bit. Let's first look at Yahweh. I would suggest that the ancient Near Eastern practice of one pledging an allegiance via tattoos, that's what tattoos are all about. They're pledging an allegiance to a god via their tattoos. This is the ancient Near Eastern view. I'm not saying that anybody, myself included, did this with tattoos. But could it be God's expression of his loyalty to his people? So God having tattoos on his hand, could this be an expression of his loyalty to the people? The ancient Near Eastern model is flipped upside down in the cultural practice of the devotee engraving their allegiance to a deity on their body with a tattoo gets reversed by Yahweh inscribing his allegiance to his family with a tattoo on his body. I think that's what's going on here, guys. They're taking an ancient Near Eastern cultural thing that's appropriate in the context, so they're inscribing, to Baal. They're cutting themselves. It literally says this in Kings. They cut themselves. They're engraving themselves to Baal and crying out. The reverse is here. They do that to appease their God, to show their loyalty. God's reversed it and brought the upside down kingdom like he always does, and he's inscribed us on his body to show his allegiance via this tattoo. Now, we could get into the mark and all that. We're not going to, but the mark is a pledge of allegiance to the beast. That's what we read in the Revelation, that whoever takes his mark cannot be saved because they've permanently pledged their allegiance to the beast and the Antichrist. I think that's what's going on here a little bit, guys. With Yahweh, he's pledged his allegiance forever to humanity, so he's inscribed them via a tattoo on his body. Now, why would there be a ban on tattoos for Yahweh's people? Let's check out humans. Could the tattoo ban described in the Old Testament for the Israelites, of course, be communicating for his people to abstain from practices that the other nations use to pledge allegiance to their gods? Because there is no need, for they already are his portion. So God is saying, don't do what the other nations do to appease their God, to pledge allegiance to their God. You don't need to do that. You're already mine. It's like my son doesn't need to get a tattoo to be, if he wants to, he can later, but he doesn't need to get a tattoo to be a part of my family, to appease me. He already has that. That is something that he already has. Or could the tattoos be reminiscent to circumcision and the dietary laws in which they were given to separate God's people from those under the dominion of rebellious sons of God? If you want to know more about the sons of God, check out that hyperlink. But so the circumcision was a part. They didn't do the circumcision so that they would become God's family. They did the circumcision because they were already God's family. That is what they did to show that they're in God's family. If you didn't do it, sometimes the Israelites didn't do it, and they were still God's family. It's not something that they did to become. It's something they do because they are, is the best way to, I would say, is the best way to describe it. Now, I would suggest that the answer to both of these questions stated above is an unequivocally yes. Conclusion. This would link Israel's circumcision and their lack of tattoos to the same purpose when we're kind of looking at it theologically wise, or why is this going on? It's all for the same purpose. The dietary laws, why they shouldn't be eating or not eating stuff, that is not to, that's not their rite of passage. That's not their right to become the people of God. That is because they're the people of God. They don't eat that. In the same way, I can use my son and my daughters again, my sons and my daughters. They don't do certain things not so that they can become my son and my sons and my daughters, but because they are my sons and daughters and they represent me. They do certain things, and I see that a lot over here for sure. They act different than the people here because they are my sons and my daughters. So yeah, this would link both of these things to the same purpose, both of which were given to the descendants of Abraham, not so that they can become God's portion by obedience, but were given these restrictions because they already are God's portion and they are to be set apart. That's a massive difference there, guys. One, you're doing it to be obedient so that you can become God's family. One is you are God's family, so you should be different. Simply put, there was no need to adopt the other nations' cultural practices of pledging allegiance because they were God's chosen people, inherited as their birthright, not gained by a procedure of acquiring tattoos. So let me read that one more time, because that's kind of the whole thing right here. There was no need to adopt the other nations' cultural practices of pledging allegiance because they were God's chosen people, inherited as their birthright, not gained by a procedure of acquiring a tattoo. So if we were to interpret the scriptures this way, it would leave us with the conclusion that once Jesus came and fulfilled the law, amen, there was no longer clean and unclean food. That's Acts 10, you can read it there. Circumcised or uncircumcised, nor, I would argue, tattooed and not tattooed, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. That's Galatians 3:28. So peace and blessings. Biblical doctrine derives from the biblical text. That's where we're getting this stuff. That's where we're driving it back into the ancient Near East, back into the Bible. Check out the short video on the image of God by our friends over at the Bible Project by clicking on the link. It's a short video. I think it's 5 minutes. It's awesome to help reinforce some of these things that I said. And let us know your thoughts about our series in the comments section. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like to suggest to us, please let us know and we'll add them to future subjects we'll cover. Just a call for action. Help us out by learning more. Grab our favorite Bible off these links here. They're no extra cost to you, but it helps keep our ministry going. We also have a favorite book, which is Supernatural. You can get it there, and we base a lot of stuff we do here in Turkey off of this book. We've translated this book. We love this book. Also, there's a donation tab on the webpage there that if you would just like to donate to our ministry, we would really appreciate it. I do this all pro bono out of my own pocket, and I love doing it because I love teaching. And yeah, we will see you guys later. I'll have a couple more of these short videos for you coming up. And so thank you for joining us here on Critical Thinking Out Loud. And we will talk to you in the next week or so. So we love you guys. Talk to you soon.